Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into a story that's making major headlines around the world. Former U.S. President Donald Trump's latest remarks, which many are calling a President of Europe meltdown. In a recent public appearance, Trump made comments that have sparked both outrage and laughter across social media and political circles. He appeared to suggest that Europe should have its own president and that he might have been the one to take on that role. It was a bizarre, fiery moment that once again has people questioning his grasp of global politics and the delicate balance of international relations. During his speech, Trump was speaking about NATO, global leadership, and America's role in defending European nations. In the middle of his remarks, he went off script, talking about how Europe doesn't have a real leader and how, if it did, he would be the best president Europe ever had. The audience reaction was mixed. Some laughed, others clapped, and many simply looked confused. The statement quickly went viral, with clips spreading across TikTok, X formerly Twitter, and major news outlets, with commentators labeling it everything from classic Trump showmanship to a complete meltdown. To understand why this comment caused such a stir, you need to know how sensitive Europe's political structure is. Europe isn't a single country, it's a collection of nations, many of which are part of the European Union, but each one has its own leader. The EU itself has officials like the President of the European Commission and the President of the European Council, but there is no singular President of Europe. So when Trump made his statement, critics argued that it revealed his misunderstanding of how Europe's governance actually works. Supporters, however, claimed he was speaking metaphorically, suggesting that the U.S. used to be the moral and strategic president of Europe by leading NATO and defending Western democracy. But the reaction in Europe was anything but metaphorical. Political figures from Germany, France, and the UK criticized the comment as arrogant and dangerously delusional. Some called it a reflection of Trump's old world mentality, where the U.S. sees itself as the protector and overseer of Europe. European newspapers ran with headlines mocking the statement, while late-night American talk shows turned it into comedic gold. The phrase "President of Europe" trended globally, and memes flooded the internet showing Trump sitting in the European Parliament, waving an American flag. Trump's critics argue that this meltdown reveals the same traits that defined his presidency: impulsive speech, a craving for attention, and a disregard for diplomatic nuance. They point to his history of tension with NATO allies, his skepticism about funding European defense, and his ongoing insistence that Europe doesn't do enough for its own security. During his presidency, Trump repeatedly claimed that European nations were taking advantage of the United States, and he often threatened to pull out of NATO if allies didn't pay their fair share. So, when he recently revisited these themes and declared himself the hypothetical President of Europe, many saw it as a continuation of his long-standing frustration with the transatlantic alliance. But let's look deeper at why this statement resonates not just as another Trump gaffe, but as a symbol of shifting global dynamics. Since Trump left office, the relationship between the United States and Europe has been in flux. President Biden worked to rebuild trust and reaffirm commitments to NATO, especially after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. However, many European nations are increasingly asserting their independence in defense policy, energy security, and economic relations with China. Trump's remarks, though chaotic, tap into a deeper conversation: who really leads the Western world today? Is it still the United States, or is Europe finally trying to stand on its own? In Trump's speech, his tone grew more agitated as he claimed that Europe doesn't know how to lead. and that the continent owes its existence to American strength. He went on to say that without America there is no Europe, echoing Cold War rhetoric but delivered with his trademark bravado. Some supporters in the crowd cheered, seeing it as a patriotic defense of American leadership. Others, however, were uncomfortable with how he dismissed the sacrifices and leadership of European allies. The moment quickly spiraled into a media frenzy, with political analysts dissecting every word. Psychologists and communication experts have described this moment as a classic Trump ego spiral. When he feels cornered by criticism or irrelevant in the current political landscape, he amplifies his self-importance to regain control of the narrative. By declaring himself President of Europe, he placed himself back at the center of global attention, even if the statement made no sense politically. It's a tactic he's used before making outrageous claims that dominate the news cycle, forcing both supporters and critics to talk about him endlessly. And once again, it worked. Within 24 hours, his speech had millions of views online, and major media outlets were dissecting the meltdown. But not everyone dismissed it as mere theatrics. Some conservative commentators argued that Trump was making a valid point about weak European leadership. They claimed that Europe has relied too heavily on the U.S. for defense, and that Trump was right to call them out, even if his wording was off. In their view, his statement was not a meltdown, but a metaphor, a call for accountability. They say Trump was expressing frustration that Europe doesn't take enough initiative in global conflicts, such as Ukraine or the Middle East, and that his President of Europe remark was simply his way of saying the West needs stronger leadership. Still, the optics of the moment were undeniably chaotic. The clip shows Trump gesturing wildly, raising his voice, and going off on tangents about NATO, taxes, and even electric cars. It was classic Trump, unscripted, emotional, and unpredictable. His critics labeled it a meltdown not because he lost control, but because it revealed how deeply he craves relevance on the global stage. Even though he's no longer president, Trump continues to dominate media narratives both in the U.S. and abroad. Every time he speaks, he manages to insert himself back into international headlines, something few former presidents have ever done. Behind the humor and outrage, there's a serious undertone to this story. Trump's comments highlight a growing divide between American nationalism and European globalism. As Europe works toward more autonomy, building its own defense strategies, and pursuing independent foreign policies, figures like Trump see that as a threat to America's traditional role as the world's leader. His words may seem exaggerated, but they reflect a real fear among American conservatives that the U.S. is losing influence, and for many of his followers, Trump's bravado is a comforting reminder of a time when America dictated the global order without challenge. European leaders, however, see it differently. To them, Trump's comments reinforce the need for Europe to protect itself politically, economically, and militarily from American unpredictability. Since his presidency, European nations have invested more in their own defense and sought to diversify their alliances. Some even say that Trump's chaos pushed Europe closer together, forcing it to realize it can't always depend on Washington. So in a strange way, his President of Europe remark may only strengthen Europe's determination to be self-reliant. As the controversy continues, Trump's team has downplayed the incident, insisting that his words were taken out of context. But by now, the clip has spread too far. It's become another viral chapter in Trump's long history of controversial statements, one that will likely be remembered not for its policy content, but for its spectacle. Whether it was a meltdown, a metaphor, or a deliberate provocation, it achieved one undeniable result. Everyone is talking about Trump again. In the end, this President of Europe moment is more than just a headline, it's a snapshot of our times. It shows how a single comment can expose the fragility of global alliances, the power of personality in politics, and the media's fascination with controversy. It's a reminder that in today's world, politics isn't just about policy, it's about performance. And once again, Donald Trump has proven he knows how to command the stage, for better or worse.